giants eating humans, angels crashing on Earth, and the Illuminati. You're listening to Our Different Take, episode 17. Proud father of two awesome boys, Star Wars collector, Jedi podcaster. This is the way. And to my left is Matt. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be here again for 17. Doesn't seem like it's been that many.
I know.
The question still remains, what rhymes with cephalum?
That's a good question.
I know. Call on me. Pick me.
And to my left, Scott. Welcome, Scott.
Oh, thank you. I am Scott, and I am a conspiratorial person extraordinaire. I love this kind of stuff, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I've always loved the Book of Enoch, and this is it's just a fun thing to be able to do tonight. So I'm looking forward to tonight's episode.
Yeah, I never really even knew much about the Book of Enoch until we went into Antarctica, and then it popped up, and good grief, there's so much to it. I mean, we're going to try to cover as much as we can, but we're not going to be able to cover maybe barely even half of it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
A lot of people probably never even heard of this book, right? I mean, even though it's part of the Bible, sorta, kinda.
Right. Probably. I grew up in church, and I never heard of this book ever. You know, it was Southern Baptist Church, and we didn't read the Book of Enoch.
Right, but Southern Baptists are all Satan worshipers, so clearly that makes sense.
We did do that, but we still didn't
come
read
as
the
you
Book
are,
of Enoch.
and you leave as you were. I too grew up in that church, so I can say whatever I want.
Oh.
Don't email.
Don't email. Right. Should we go in? Let's talk about the origins and history of the book first, so people that don't know what we're talking about can get a sense of the history of the book, and then we'll get into the first book of Enoch, because there's 3, but we're really going to focus on the first one mainly for this one. So if anyone has any questions, or they send questions in about the other books, we haven't looked at them, so we can't answer those.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So the Book of Enoch was first discovered in 1773 in Ethiopia. And apparently Ethiopia had the only original copy of the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, I'd read that it was actually written in some, what was the Ge'ez? How do you pronounce that language that it was in? Did you see that?
I did, but that sounds like good to me.
Yeah, it was some other language. Most of the Bible is written in either Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic. And this one is one of the few books that it was not. The main copy that they have was in some different language. I think one of the reasons why they didn't want to put it in the Bible, they didn't want to canonize it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I heard the early church was crazy about it. Like it's been cited many times in the Bible, and they talked about it a lot. And I guess the Hebrew or the Jewish people were big on it apparently for a long time, until it lost favor with the church through, what did they say, the 1300s or something like that. But I think the copy that you're talking about that was found in Ethiopia was all of it put together somehow.
Yeah.
And not the only copy, but you know what I'm saying? Like a more complete version.
Right. Well, they say that wasn't translated until 1881. So most of the time, I forget who translated it, but some dude translated it in 1881 so we could fully understand what it is in the English language. I'm assuming it was in the English.
I assume that's
Yeah.
what translated means. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. But you're all right. You are right. Jesus quoted it in the New Testament and also in the book of Jude, I believe.
Which the Beatles wrote about.
Hey, Jude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
think
true.
somewhere in the book of Enoch is the verse that goes, nah, 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 nah.
That's
I'm going to look
awesome.
that up.
I think you're right. Oh my God, that's so good.
Jeez. Is that no wonder it's not in the Bible part of
Slightly
canon?
irreverent.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh dear.
I'm taking notes down here real quick. So when people send emails, it goes right to you, Scott.
Just forward it on.
Right. Well, Enoch contains material on the origins. I think the origins of demons, giants, why angels fell from heaven, explanation of why the flood in Genesis, why it was morally necessary. Again, I'm giving a broad overview right here. We'll take a deeper dive into some of these things.
Right.
The authors of the New Testament were pretty familiar with a lot of the content in Enoch. Like we were saying, it was cited, like Enoch 1:9 was cited in the New Testament in the Epistle of Jude, just like the Beatles.
I had read a couple of places that said, Enoch is separated into a bunch of different kind of books in and of themselves, like a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. I think it's like 5 parts, isn't it?
I believe so. 5
Yeah.
is, yes.
So what it seems that from what I had seen, it seems that this book 1 is kind of the one that everybody was familiar with, and then the others may have been added on at a later time by different authors, but still ascribed to Enoch. So like the part that the Jews seemed to be familiar with was this first part that we're talking about tonight, and the other part is kind of like maybe we're not sure if that was part of the original book or not, but it appears to have been written at a different time.
The other books, do
The
you
other,
remember how far later in time?
I have seen that all the way up to several hundred years later on. Now Enoch was way back when. I mean, Enoch was uh, one of the first people alive in recorded biblical history. So he lived even prior to Noah, and some of these things that I was reading dates the second parts of the book to like a couple hundred years BC. So if that's true, if that's correct, then there would have been a very large time elapsing between when Enoch was walking the earth and when this book, the second parts of the book, were ostensibly written. So it says that Enoch is the author of the book. In the book, it says that Enoch was the author of the book. So we assume that, but when did it get transcribed and when were the other parts written? I don't know. It appears that it may have been added on to.
Yeah, I didn't get any research on the other books actually.
But don't trust
on
don't trust me on it. I'm probably full of crap, but that's what I read.
Well, we can have our dozens of fact checkers back at the office pour through that and let us know.
I'll get them right on that.
I'm going to email Zuckerberg. Let's see where he's at with this. Some fact checking going here. That's right. Well, let's just start talking about the Watchers. I mean, we just want to get into it. Let's get into the meat and the exciting part of this.
How cool is that they're called the Watchers? Super cool.
The Watchers.
Like
cool
and terrifying. Like you think about large size angels with superpowers practically,
right?
Who are skilled in, from what I read, dark arts, magic, sorcery, all kinds of stuff.
Astrology.
They were pretty badass, and they made a big impression apparently.
They did, because they did a lot of clay work too, and they were doing impressions of people's hands and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
they were
and
pretty good at that. Clay work, making pots.
Jeez.
They also enjoyed a little boom boom time with the ladies.
I knew you were going to go there, Matt.
You know, I mean, it's in the book, man.
It
It's part
is.
of
It is.
It
You
is
know
in
what?
the
Don't make this shit up, boys.
In the first few chapters of it, it actually it appears to me anyway. Now it doesn't specifically say this, but it appears to me as though the Watchers were the ones who actually discovered illicit drugs and introduced those to man.
Like a little roofie colada for the ladies, like
Like all of
loosen things up a little.
the stuff that gets you high, it's like they were the ones that were kind of like, hey, have you considered this plant over here?
Mescaline, yeah. Maybe that's well. I mean, if that's true, then they're responsible for all of the great music we've experienced down through our many generations.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, huh?
Were the Beatles Watchers?
No, clearly no.
The answer to that is nah,
Okay.
nah.
I got to get some sound effects for this podcast, because there's like some sighs and people slapping their foreheads or something, because we're going to need it. Well, the first 36 chapters are pretty much about the Watchers, really, or what some people have called them pre-Adamites. Now, doing research on this, we'll go into some stuff that I've heard that is way out there conspiracy wise, and some that's pretty much quote unquote more mainstream, I guess. But we'll cover both of it, and then we'll see what you guys think. Because some of this, I enjoy good conspiracies, but some of it, even this is a little bit out there. So we'll get into it so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not all conspiracies are true, right? We all kind of agree that some of these things are true, but not all conspiracies. Just because you believe in conspiracies doesn't mean you believe in all conspiracies, right?
True.
But if you look at it through the filter of my theory that Christ was an alien and angels are alien to this world, and they all kind of showed up and did their thing, it might make a little bit of sense.
Well, that's what part of this theory is where these Watchers, which were pretty much like giants, they were called the pre-Adamites, and the story of fallen angels, which were real extraterrestrials,
right?
They crash landed on Antarctica, but Antarctica is not where it was now. Antarctica was over where Australia is before all the continents shifted. So these extraterrestrials crash landed there, and it was called Atlantis before everything shifted. They set up a colony there, cloned themselves with the human DNA. That's why they were sleeping with the humans and stuff like that, and that's how they spread all over the world. So that's a big overview there of one of the theories from the Watchers.
Very interesting. Did either of you guys read about the archangel Metatron?
Metatron?
Isn't he
That sounds like a transformer.
I swear to God, it's
a
in the
transformer.
book of Enoch. It sounds like a transformer. And apparently Enoch said that he saw in a vision Metatron sitting next to Christ, and to him they were equal. Very interesting. And Metatron looks, well, in this picture, sort of like a giant, effeminate, soft, fluffy angel with 6 wings, but kind of interesting. The name is very interesting. There's several names. The Hebrew names, I can't remember. I'll have to look them up. But Metatron, I thought was pretty cool.
Was Optimus Prime on his other side?
I have no idea.
That's because
I just thought when I first heard it, I'm like, huh, that sounds interesting.
Right?
Like
that must be book 2 is about Optimus Prime and Bumblebee.
I mean, they made a movie about it. Can't be boring.
It's true. It's true.
So like
So
go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know if you can see the notes that I put up on there or not. I kind of put them up late, so I don't know if they're even showing up on your side or not. So
I can't.
oh dang it.
I know.
Yeah, hit refresh. I bet it'll show up.
Okay.
So the book of Enoch is largely largely an exposition on Genesis chapter 6, right? So if you look through Genesis chapter 6, it's like one little chapter on the Nephilim. To me, it's kind of a big deal. Like the Nephilim is a huge part of history, but the Bible, as we have it, really does just like a little cursory mention of them. So what the book of Enoch does is kind of takes that Genesis chapter 6 and blows it up into a pretty elaborate description of what the Nephilim were and how they got here. And so to me, if this is true, if the book of Enoch is actually legitimate, and it talks about these angels that basically they were eternal beings. They came down to earth, kind of wanted to check out what it was like to be non-eternal. They kind of wanted the best of both worlds, right? They wanted all of the stuff that man had, but then at the same time, they kind of still wanted their eternal nature. So they came down and they mated with women, and then after they did that, they were kind of like, but wait, now we just kind of lost our eternal nature, and then they pleaded with Enoch to actually go and intercede for them with God to try to basically save them. But so what happens if you take if it's true and you take these angelic beings, which in the Bible, if you look at the rest of how they treated angels and demons, they're kind of godlike in a lot of ways. Like they have a lot of powers that we don't have. So if you're a person, you might look at angels as let's say little g gods, because they can do a lot of things that we can't do. And so if you were to mate a angelic being with a human being, uh, again, assuming that this is true, could that not have produced basically the origins of Greek mythology?
Oh,
So
maybe so. I didn't think about that.
we've always been taught, the Greek mythology was exactly that, myth, right? That it didn't really happen. It's the stuff of fables. But what if it did? What would happen if you were to take a god, a being of that kind of prowess and power, and mix it with the DNA of man? Could you not have some of the things that were talked about in Greek mythology? And then, of course, they could still speak in hyperbole and things like that. So, just to say that it's true doesn't mean that everything that Greek mythology talked about happened exactly the way that Greek mythology said it did. So, again, you could kind of say, okay, here's the basis of truth here, and then then the hyperbole took over, and they started saying
Mhm.
that they're roping planets and things like that. Um, so just something to think about. What if it actually did happen, and that's how some of the things that we've recorded, and not just Greek mythology, but if you also look at some of the things in Hinduism, I know a lot of the Hindus believe that this is not mythology, that it actually did happen, and to me, that this kind of thing might be an explanation for how it happened and how it's recorded in not just one religion, but how it's actually recorded in several different religions, the same event. So
That's interesting because there are also accounts of Indians fighting giants. Right? There's actual accounts. So when we came over and we started, taking over North America, by that time, some of the writings say the Indians had pretty much come together and fought these giants and got rid of them. So there really weren't any around anymore.
I heard about that.
Right. So there's accounts there. Easter Island in 1722, they reported being introduced to 12-foot tall men when they arrived on the island. They had, long ears. Their skin was kind of light, some red hair. They were called the Hanau Epi is what they were called.
They sound disgusting.
Right? Like a big elf, maybe. I don't know.
Like Dobby from Harry Potter.
Right.
Only bigger.
Right. And that was in 1722, before the Book of Enoch was even discovered. So, like you're saying, there's more than one focus on this. I mean, there's several different areas on Earth that are talking about possibly the same thing.
I always find it interesting when you see corroboration like that, where it's not just one religion and not just one area of the earth, kind of like what we were talking about the other day, a couple episodes back with pyramids. The pyramids are not just an Egyptian phenomenon, they're all over the world.
Right.
And different kinds of pyramids, but they're all over the world. And so I find it interesting when you see that kind of a repetition in different religions as well. It's kind of like maybe there's some truth to this. So again, assuming that it's true, and I by no means can know that it is, but if it is, then could this not also be a potential answer to the pyramids, to the sunken cities, to the underground cities that underneath the terrestrial Earth, or the ones underneath the ocean, or maybe like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the Nazca lines in Peru. I know some of the Hindu manuscripts refer to an event that really sounds an awful lot like a nuclear war having happened here on Earth, and they also give mention to flying craft that some of the gods had used as transport. So and even further adding to that, there are places on Earth that have to this day elevated levels of radiation that
Really?
would give credence to the idea that perhaps there was a nuclear war that had happened, and we're not talking 5,000 years ago. We're talking like 50,000 years ago, and maybe if that actually happened, this might provide some sort of a reason for that, a way that happened that the Darwinian explanation of evolution wouldn't account for.
That's really interesting. I'd never heard about the radiation levels.
I believe it's somewhere in India that they found that they had found just really high levels of a specific type of cancer in an area, and when they started looking around at it, they found like the glass that when you have a nuclear explosion, you get that kind of that green glass, and then they had found with that elevated levels of radiation that would be that would confirm or give credence to the idea that there was an actual nuclear explosion in that area.
That is some crazy shit, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if that has to do anything. Could be a stretch or not even related, but I was also reading they brought up the Ark of the Covenant and how the priest that used to watch the Ark of the Covenant, there was so much radiation coming off that there are reports of their vision going because the radiation would give them cataracts in their eyes.
Where'd you hear about that?
Gaia, actually.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff on Gaia.
Seriously, I love that channel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the best. Yeah, they were saying, that it could even be possible because you saw in Indiana Jones, right, the Ark of the Covenant that melted the guy's face off.
Right. Maybe that
could happen.
Maybe that wasn't just fiction.
Yeah, there could be some truth to that, which huge amounts of radiation coming off that, which could relate again to the nuclear explosions and radiation.
Crazy.
Anyway, I'd throw that in there. That's extra. We don't charge our listeners for that tidbit.
Tidbit? Morsel?
Yeah, morsel.
Coming back to the kind of the origins of the book, this happened a couple of generations prior to Noah. And so again, if you look at kind of the theology of Adam and Eve and what happened with the seed of mankind becoming corrupt and needing a Messiah, and that kind of the whole Christian theology is based around the fact that Adam and Eve fell, and so they would need to have somebody come through that line that would be a savior at some point in the future. And so the angels came down basically with the idea of corrupting the line of mankind. And so Noah was the only family left at that point who had not been corrupted with foreign DNA, angelic DNA. And so that's why God chose Noah to build the ark and why he chose him to rebuild humanity, because he was the only uncorrupt line. So
Oh, that's crazy.
if yeah, and we've kind of always been told that it was just, mankind was just really corrupt, they were doing bad things, but really it was, if this stuff is true, then you could say the corruption wasn't sin per se, it was actual corruption of DNA to the point where there was no actual man left beyond Noah and his family. And
Which means if we can find an angel, we could do it again.
Well,
I
apparently they are tied up in Antarctica, all 200 of them.
Well, maybe. You never know.
And it's possible. I mean,
I
that kind of makes sense though,
I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of
right?
could, and so when the flood happened, again, assuming that they were all had one continent at that point in time, still, because I know the continental drift theory says that it happened a whole long time ago, but maybe if you had a flood that covered the entire world, then that might cause continental drift to happen very rapidly, which would be why Antarctica split with um, God, why am I not remembering the continent? Australia.
Australia.
Mm,
Yeah.
So that flood might cause that. And if you look at all of the rest of the continents, they all kind of fit together, right? So you could tell that they used to be one at some point in time, and
yeah.
they've all kind of split. So maybe the flood would have hastened that process, and that could have resulted in Antarctica being where it's at right now, because they found all kinds of vegetation and things on it to show that it didn't used to be where it is now. That's not
Right.
really even disputed. That even our science kind of says that. So I think it's kind of interesting to consider, what if this stuff is not mythology? Maybe all of it has some basis in actual truth, and maybe it's that just not being talked about. Maybe it's not being taught.
It wouldn't surprise me. If you ever, did you used to ever play that game where people would line up in a row and there'd be like 10 of you in a row and you tell the person on the left a story, like one sentence, and then that person has to repeat it to the next one,
Yeah.
and then so on and so
Yeah.
forth down to the
Yeah.
end of the line. By the time you get down to the end of the line, it has nothing to do like what the original
Yes.
Right.
way it happened. It could be the
Yep.
same thing with this, right? Over time, we're way down the line. We're years and years down the line. It could be the same thing.
It might be.
Yeah. Well, even the book itself, right? If the thing was written, even if it was written in the late part of the timeline, a couple hundred years BC, and when they found it in 1700, that's a lot of years.
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
two millennium, right? So uh, how does that stuff not get changed even a little bit? I mean, hell,
Right.
even looking at the translations of the Bible that are around today, they have all these manuscripts, and still, if you go from one translation to another translation to another, they're pretty different, a lot of them. And
Hmm.
Right.
that's having all of the information here. So I can't even imagine when you didn't have the centralization of the internet bringing things together, how that there would not be some sort of change in the stuff over time.
Makes sense. Truly.
True. And you've got one guy that's going to translate the book So who's not to say that, he's thinking what we should hear and what we shouldn't?
True. Yeah.
Don't know what his disposition is or what he believes, so he could be censoring it as he's translating it.
There could be a need for political gain or something like that. You never know.
Jack Dorsey may be involved.
Maybe.
There's always a chance. Well, there's another part to this here too that seems to be it relates almost to current situations now. So I'll give you a quote here, and this is from the book of Enoch. It says, I don't know what chapter, but anyway, the words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. So, according to our sources on Gaia, they believe that the people they're talking about who will be removed are direct descendants of the giants, which are the Watchers or the Nephilim. So there's people who still have the DNA from these giants, but they don't, the giants had kind of elongated skulls, and the skulls were huge. I mean, because these guys were gigantic. But through evolution, whatever you want to call it, some people have the DNA still, but not the elongated skull features. So those people that have the DNA now, those are the people that are considered to be the Illuminati or the New World Order. And these leaders, you can track them back to the fallen or the angels that fell from heaven and are direct descendants of Lucifer. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
By God, I will.
Yeah. So the people running the show right now are direct descendants of Lucifer.
Wouldn't they still have some sort of powers if that was the case?
Maybe they do. We just don't know it.
Huh.
Well, part of what the Watchers taught people were like weapons, cosmetics. So maybe the Illuminati just have the cosmetic section left and are running Mary Kay.
Maybelline.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Evil.
Maybe it's Lucifer.
That's perfect.
Yeah. We don't know what they have left. That could be it.
Oh, I could just, we've just started a brand new conspiracy, haven't we?
You
have. No offense to Mary Kay if they want to sponsor.
Oh, man. Yeah, we're never going to get Maybelline's sponsor now. Dang it. I was so close.
So worried. Yeah,
I know. We were in talks with them too, because Matt was going to have to wear makeup for a photo shoot.
They got to be like that.
This just goes to show we cannot be bought.
That's your deal.
That's right. We have standards.
Very low. Very, very low standards. If anybody wants to sponsor, please feel free to make an offer.
Man, I had no idea it was going to go that way, but anyway. The cosmetics part is true, though. I mean, that part is true. And the direct descendants of Lucifer could be some version of the truth. So we were just drawing a line there that might not have been drawn by anyone, but our different take.
Yeah, that's why we have a different take.
It's true. We don't follow the herd at all. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
It is very interesting.
So let's go back a little bit to the 200 who crash landed on Earth. Everything seems to revolve around this 200.
Right.
So do we really think that the 200 now are still imprisoned in Antarctica? That's why Obama and those guys are going down there to talk to them, because they're supposed to be released at some point back into the world. At some point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the book itself talks about the fact that that they were turned on one another and they killed each other off. Now, what happened to, what happens when an angel dies, right? Do they actually die? How does that, are they still eternal beings if they're mixed with human DNA? Who knows?
They're timeless as far as I thought. I don't think they die.
I mean, but what if you take an angel and mix it with a human? Then what are they?
I don't know. You know, it's interesting because the Old Testament, like the ages that they give that people live to are crazy, insane long, right?
Right? Yeah, like
Like
1,000
700
years.
years. Yeah. Maybe there's some of that in there. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, angels apparently do not have souls. Quote, the Bible clearly
So
says that
my
they are
ex-wife could
spirits.
be one. I
An
got it.
angel?
An angel, maybe a fallen angel.
Okay. All
Oh,
right.
You did
They
say
say the
that.
word soul refers to
Wait a
mankind
minute.
alone.
Wait a minute.
Soulless.
You said on Easter Island that they ran into these red-haired gingers, right?
Correct. 12 foot.
They don't have a soul.
Man, that's
Huh?
interesting.
Are we following here? Huh?
Yeah, man. I agree.
Hmm.
South Park. It's true.
All right, yeah. Forget that. That was stupid. To all of our red-haired listeners, I am stupid, and yeah, don't fire us because of me.
Don't listen. He's not being honest. He hates you.
Yeah.
Send all emails addressed to Scott at Our Different Take, please.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
So, angels don't have souls, according to the internet, because the internet's always right.
Yeah,
Right on.
true.
So, if these angels are buried in Antarctica waiting to come out with no souls, then that means does that mean they can't die if you don't have a soul?
So where's the idea that they're buried in Antarctica coming from?
Yeah, where's that?
The 200 that, so the giants came. Okay, so here's part of the conspiracy. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Enoch, he was in direct contact with Elohim, or benevolent extraterrestrials. Okay. The ETs, they make a judgment that the Watchers are wicked and evil. The angels decide they would allow the flood to kill all these giants because the giants are killing men. They're having sex with them. They're teaching them weird stuff. Like Scott was saying earlier, they're changing their DNA. They're massacring them. You know, it's chaos. Earth is complete chaos. The giants talk to Enoch, and he goes to Elohim and he's like, hey, can you just forgive these giants? They said they're sorry. They're not going to do it anymore. They're going to play nice. They're going to, bake them cupcakes. They're not going to kill them. Elohim, or the benevolent ET, says, forget that crap. They need to be killed. That's where the flood comes in. The giants originally came from a group of 200 who crash landed on the earth. So I think that's where they're saying,
how'd they get
the
under
200.
Antarctica?
Well, if I remember going back to our last podcast where we talked a little bit more of Antarctica, there are 200, which are fallen angels that were imprisoned somewhere on Earth. And according to the book of Enoch, it describes mountains where these guys are buried, where the sun's out all the time. And there are 7 mountains, which matches Antarctica to a T.
Okay, I got you.
So that's why they think the 200 of these, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like fallen angels or whatever, are buried in Antarctica. That's where that comes from.
I understand. So hell is like a real place and it's on Earth kind of a thing.
Kind of, but I don't think this is described as hell. This is more of a...
It's just there.
Imprisoned, yeah. And the number 10,000 comes to my head, but that could be wrong. But 10,000 years, these angels are supposed to be released. That's why Obama, that's why the priest, like the Pope, it wasn't the Pope, but went down there and disappeared because they think they're having negotiations with these people that are going to come out. And I don't know what they're trying to negotiate, but they're down there talking with them before these people are released.
Who are they talking to, supposedly? They're not
The
actually talking to the 200.
Yeah.
So
To
how
the
do
200.
so they can get down to this prison and they can see
Apparently.
these people, but see these angels, but the angels can't get out?
Yeah, they're still imprisoned.
Huh.
So they must have like a phone and there's plexiglass in between that they can talk to them.
Yeah, that'd be my guess, huh? Like,
That's probably it. They're all wearing orange jumpsuits.
Maybe they're just imprisoned in there and we can go in and out if we want to, but they can never leave or move or hurt anybody.
the Hotel California.
Kind of like that.
You can check out any
I mean,
time
there's
you
a lot
like, but you can never leave.
Can never leave. That would suck.
Except after 10,000 years.
True. And that time's coming apparently pretty quick.
Huh.
Huh.
Yeah, so maybe I don't necessarily buy that part of this conspiracy. I think maybe that's a bit of a stretch. I don't know.
Might be.
I totally believe it.
It is interesting though, because why would you got Antarctica, right? There's a lot of countries down there doing, experiments, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
But why in the world would a priest, like the second in command under the Pope, show up at Antarctica to do mass?
I mean,
Why indeed?
John Kerry, Obama, and a priest go to Antarctica. I mean, it sounds like a great.
It does,
Sounds like a great joke. I don't know.
It does. John Kerry, what the heck? What is he doing in Antarctica?
I really don't know, but I really can't imagine that John Kerry would be chosen to have direct communication with, Luciferian creatures. I don't.
Oh, I don't know.
I think he was just serving crumpets and tea to everyone during the meeting. I'm pretty sure that was his job.
I don't know. I mean, some of the conspiracies maybe, might be a bit much, but
Well, that's what makes it fun because, you never know.
No, we're getting ready to talk to a guy a couple of weeks from now who kind of believes some of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His name is Connor, and he's going to be a guest host on the podcast. And he does kind of a podcast that's on SoundCloud and Instagram called Bigfoot Anonymous. So we're going to have him as a guest.
Are we going to have him talking about our topics, like this topic, if we hit on it again, or are we talking about his topic?
His topics are pretty much the same as our topics, so we're right aligned together. So it's going to be interesting just to interview him, and he has an EMF meter now that he's checking out for spirits and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we'll talk to him about. But that's in a couple
down
weeks.
In Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep, he's a good buddy of Our Different Take now. So listen to him on SoundCloud.
Very cool.
All right. Well, that'll be interesting to hear his different take on if there's still angels imprisoned in Antarctica.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything? Any final thoughts about the Book of Enoch and the Watchers and everything else?
I think we continue to drill down on this topic, if not in the next episode, in some future episode, because there's so much stuff to do with this book, and it ties in so well to some of the other things that we've been touched on or we've been talking about in the recent past. I think we still run with it at some point.
Yeah, to me, that's the interesting part of it, is that if there is truth to this book, then so many of the conspiracy theories that you hear out there do tie in to stuff like this in some way, shape, or form. They all kind of come back to a certain theme. So many of them do. And if this is true, then it's kind of like, well, maybe some of these other things that seemed real wild, maybe they're not so wild. Because really that's what all of this stuff is, right? Anything that we believe to be true, we only believe to be true because we have been taught it, or we have seen some sort of evidence that it's true. And so
Right.
what if all of a sudden some paradigm shifting evidence comes out and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I had never seen this before. I'd never heard this before. And here it is. What do you do with it? And so maybe if some of this stuff we just haven't seen any evidence on it, and all of a sudden you find out, hey, this is true, then it opens up all kinds of things that
Mhm.
you really wouldn't have given any kind of credence to otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, we spent another hour on this, and again, I feel like we just barely scraped the surface again.
Barely. Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
So we'll continue this.
Cool.
We're going to share with you guys several voicemails that we received this week. One we haven't heard from a listener in a long time. You'll know who that is if you started listening to us a long time ago. And also an outtake from that same call.
Please hang up and try again.
Voicemails.
Hey, ODT. It's Connor from Bigfoot Anonymous. I'm really looking forward to your upcoming episode about Antarctica. It's definitely one of my true passions because I believe the government and whoever is in charge is hiding land. I believe there's thousands of continents beyond the ice wall, and I think there's species of people, aliens, and animals that have never been considered. There's caves that go far beneath the ice that may lead to Atlantis and other worlds and civilizations. I think there's the inside sun and the inner earth. I believe that's where the Mayans and the Incas went, and maybe even Adolf Hitler or Abraham Lincoln. And some people think that's a little crazy, but if the fountain of youth is real and in the center of the earth, if they reached it, who's to say they're not still alive? I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and looking forward to chopping it up with you guys in the future. Take it easy, guys. Stay woke, stay positive, and stay yourself in these trying times. It's a backwards world, but we can just keep moving forward. See you guys.
Hey, Matt and Brian. My name is Harlan Tide from the Sun Up Buddy Bible Camp and Studies. First-time caller, long-time listener. I was listening way back in the 80s when y'all had that AM call-in show out of Omaha. Any doodles. I just finished listening to episode 7, The Ghost of Fireball Mike. Now, I enjoyed a lot of it, but then y'all started talking about the man downstairs, Beelzebub. You know, there's an old saying in the Bible. If you invite the devil over for dinner, he's going to have seconds. If you let the devil in, sure, he says, he couch for just a night, 2 days tops. But before you can blink a Christian eye, the devil's claim squatter's right. Your safety deposit, that's gone. Kiss it goodbye. You think he'll clean up after himself? You'll be doing the devil dishes till he just wakes up. You think the devil practices social distancing? No, sir. He gets up real close, whisper in your ear, hug you from behind like Joe Biden embracing a science fair winner. There are no boundaries, you understand me? Keep up the great work, boys. Just remember, unless you got a great gag reflex, keep the devil out your mouth, because he's going deep. Hey, man, Brian. My name is Pastor Harlan Tide from the Sun Up Buddy Bible Camp. First-time caller, long-time listener. I was listening way back in the 80s when you had a show called Show Out Idaho. Okay. Damn it. That can't count, right? Oh, I'm still talking.
Thanks, everyone. Keep the voicemails coming. We will put you on the air.
Thanks for listening this week. Welcome to our new listeners in Russia. Thanks so much for listening, comrade. Send us an email as to where you're listening from so we can give you a shout out. Go to ourdifferenttake.com and our Facebook group page called ODT Nation. Shout out to Heather and Sandra for inviting many people to ODT Nation. Thanks so much for that. Please send us your comments, suggestions, complaints, or questions to show@ourdifferenttake.com. You can also use our voicemail hotline to submit questions or comments, or really say anything that you want. Just call 970-343-4594. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and look for us wherever you get your podcast from. We also have a YouTube channel called Our Different Take. please subscribe and click on the bell when a new podcast is released. If there's a certain subject you would like us to talk about, please let us know. We will entertain all ideas. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Thanks so much for joining us. Good night.
There.
Like, looking at it right now, it looks very small compared to your guys's.
I don't know. It looks kind of.
We must be looking at different things then, because
Yeah.
mine's like super small. Yours is huge.
I hear that all the time. Don't hurt yourself on it.
Oh man.
So